We are two of us here from Jharkhand, and this topic, we are going to share it 5 minutes each, or yeah. We are basically going to be talking about, telling a story about this place, this Jharkhand, where this whole conflict has come up, and it's coming over ground now. Sarjomda literally means, it's a name of a village, but it literally means Sarjom is the sal tree, and Da is the water. And Sarjom is used for very many religious, social, economic purposes. This place, which has come up into a conflict, is because of a World Bank project which has come up here. And the people here have questioned that our consent, which is needed, is being given by somebody else. So the issue of representation and self-representation comes in here. So in this one, if you try to look at what this conflict is all about, we may have to go a little at the back to see a little bit of a historical development of this place as to why this whole issue of Adivasi communities being identifying themselves as a different group of people with different social, cultural, and economic and political background, and not being able to fully adjust with the mainstream social, political, economic conditions. Jharkhand, as we see, that it was divided into 5 divisions: Kolhan, North Chotnagpur, Palamu, Santhal Pargana, and South Chotnagpur. And here we have 32 Adivasi communities, and along with the other Mulvasi communities who have lived with Adivasis for centuries as service providers and been a part of the community. And in the course of time, they have been able to develop own system of self-governance. And this self-governance system is very unique to itself. Although there are many negatives and positives, both talked about this self-governance. But if you look back into the early British period, when the British took over from the Mughal emperorship here, it was in 1765 itself, when British had taken over, and in 1767 itself, there was this whole opposition had come up to this alien kind of a system which was intruding into this area. As earlier speaker had said about excluded area, this area was considered to be a partly excluded area. And partly excluded, which means they wanted to have their presence in this area, but also wanted to find out ways in which the local communities can be incorporated into the system of tax payments. And way back in and throughout, we see that there were a lot of disturbances, uprisings, rebellions, but all these terms were termed so. But these were like fight for more autonomy and for their own independence of functioning. And this is where the customary traditional system had a big role to play, although it is not very much referred into the in the course of history. But this
you may have to speed up a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to expedite quite significantly.
Okay. Yeah. So and this is the background in which we are trying to explain our situation here. Jharkhand, this is the state. The southern part of Jharkhand is mostly the scheduled areas. 12 scheduled areas, and partly other 3 districts are partly scheduled. Here, the most important thing what we have is, out of this whole historical context, the Chotnagpur Tenancy Act, 1908, which came up after a long rebellion in 1831 and 32. This Chotnagpur Tenancy Act came into being, and the Santhal Pargana Tenancy Act also in the later course. But these struggles were still going on. The important thing in this one is that there was this Khuntkatti system and the Bhulyari system, which were the very unique land systems, which actually said that the original settlers of these in these villages, they own the land, and they were able to settle people who would come here for their service. And this Khuntkatti system, where they would not pay tax, but they would pay rather the donation for the services. And that's how these Khuntkatti, we have all these in this Khuntkatti system. There are in Khunti area, we have 156 intact Khuntkatti villages, and broken for 449 and so forth. So in the south, in the East Singhbhum area, we have we also have almost the same governing system, which the major 5 Adivasi communities who have it with different names, but the basic structure of this governing system is more or less the same. So maybe I would want Sharat to take over from here, and since also want him to have some time to explain this further. Thank you.
See the land tenure system, and based upon that, you see that there's a lot of protection to the community lands. But over the period of time, because of the administrative mechanisms changing, there have been changes to the way land has been acquired. And you see in this particular slide that the local governance is trying to rise up to the occasion and assert their rights once again. I need to just keep on changing. Yeah, I'll go there. Okay. Okay. The Santal majority village, wherein the provisions of PESA and the under the 5th schedule is applied. This village had this, there was this developmental program which was proposed there, and land was to be acquired. Now, when you see there, that the structure which was to be erected, the permissions were not taken from the Gram Sabha. The local leader was not aware, and one fine morning, with the help of the local mukhia and police, people came and they started excavating the land. Now, obviously, you find that the community resisted, and there was the local Maji and all, he approached the court. The community resisted, and the local traditional leader was someone who led the movement. And when they took it to court, the court said that this is the right of the Maji and he should read out the verdict. And this way you see that this whole traditional governance or the customary governance system was given a space in the whole legal framework. Though I don't say that this is something which is something which is in practice across, but at least it has made a change. More villages have come up and they have started asserting their rights. So we feel that Sarjomda is really the case of Sarjomda has really driven the other customary leaders to assert their rights in this state. Uh, as you see in the Gidhi jhopdi, which is also in the adjoining to the urban area of Jamshedpur, you had a similar case wherein the local leaders resisted. So you find that within the state there is a dynamics which is going on wherein the developmental so-called developmental projects are asking for land, and the process in which they go through is not something which acknowledges the role of the customary governance, and that is where there is a clash. We have this whole three structures of customary governance, and you see with when it comes with the administrative structure, there is a mismatch in the way it is incorporated in the traditional present panchayati raj. You have gram sabhas at that level. Yes, we can. There is some level of common space, and the gram sabha is being uh, headed by. We have here Mukhya, but Gram Sabha is to be presided by the customary leader as per the Jharkhand Panchayati Raj Act. But after that, you see in the Panchayat Samitis or the Jilla Parishads, the customary governance has the system of Parhas, Peers, Parganas, and then Disum Parganas. This is not acknowledged in the Panchayati Raj. And there's no way in which these mechanisms can somehow interact, correlate, and then coexist. You see the traditional territories of the communities, and you see the administrative boundaries of the district. The Asanboni Pargana you have, and there is a lot of match and mismatch in between, and you find that these are some of the reasons that overlapping of the two is not something which is happening or which is taking place. There's another effort which is going on in this name of a land bank, which the state is proposing to create to facilitate the purposes written in the document at the moment is to facilitate developmental programs, and it's not very clear too much. And in this land bank, the proposed amendments are in the various sections of the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act. It's in the section 21B and in the Santhal Pargana Act section 13, similar in the multiple sections of this Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act. So you see, one of the important thing was the alienated land can be restored, but that has been like something like a 30 years some lease type of concept is inbuilt in between. So there is some level of confusion in the way it is worded. So there is a lot of resistance to this whole process of creating a land bank, and you find that people are objecting to this whole idea. The other reason which being here we would like to share is the community land, the Gair Majura land is also something which the land bank is planning to take over. So this was a land which was mostly governed, which was governed by the traditional governance system. But now, once it comes under the land bank, you have the DC or the state governing mechanism controlling the rights, usage, and access. So this is something that is undermining the role of the traditional headman. It's also undermining the role of the PESA. I think we'll just. I think, is it? Okay, just two more slides. So I think as I mentioned earlier, that the Panchayati Raj Act and the traditional governance, there is a mismatch, and being in a fifth schedule area, you find that this is also creating challenges for the traditional governance to coexist. To conclude, the customary governance, it shows its potential to be the key governing structure, but it needs to be backed by some statutory law. As I said, that the match and mismatches are quite evident. Its legitimacy within the community is quite high, and I think Adivasis at the moment They need more space for representation and making their voices heard, especially in the issues where there is land delineation and developmental processes, and more free prior informed consent type of concept needs to be put in place. Thank you everybody.